couple weeks ago, we were helping one of our members here at the club. He was struggling to get what he thought was the proper angle of attack. Now, we've got TrackMan in every bay, so you can see what you're doing on every shot. He was trying to lower his spin, improve his launch angle, get that nice high ball flight. But what he was doing for all of his efforts was increasing spin and dropping his launch angle. And he was doing that because he kept trying to hit more and more up on it. We're going to show you today exactly how we got him the ball flight he wanted by tweaking how he was going about doing it. Now, if that's something that you've ever chased and not had much fun with, please subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot of videos to help you not only hit the ball better, but certainly drive it better. This started with the setup for our member.
You hear all over the place, hit up on the ball
Right.
for more distance with a driver. And if you just heard that, the first instinct for the golfer is to put the ball up in the stance and then kind of lean to the right here in an effort to kind of hit way up on this ball because that's what they think they're supposed to be doing. So the setup that they're making here really puts them in a bad spot to do what they're really trying to do, and you're going to show them here in a second. I know with this goniometer.
We've got our goniometer, and what I did was I kind of handed it to him like this so he couldn't see the numbers and let him say, well, how much should you be hitting up on it? And he was like, okay, that looks like about the right amount. That amount hitting up on it is 14 degrees. Okay, I said, well, that might be the problem. There's 0, there's 2 up, almost indistinguishable here on camera, and there's 5 up. And 5 up is more than you need to be hitting up on it. So just his perception of doing that was causing him more and more tilt, more and more shoving the hands forward, and it was tying him in a knot when he was just setting up to it. He was hitting the bottom of the face, which you can talk about the bulge and roll of the club, that reduced his ball flight and ramped up his spin.
A lot of times the concept creates the motion.
Right.
So if he's thinking that he needs to hit up 15 degrees,
or his perception what 3 up was, or whatever it is,
his brain is going to try to sort that problem out, right? So the hanging back, the trying to hit up creates so much up, and the low point is so far back, because that's part of it too, right? If I'm hitting up a lot, the low point has to be farther back because the club needs to ascend. You're going to start hitting it lower and lower on the face. And because of the bulge and roll of the driver, the lower you hit it on his face, the lower the launch and the more spin, which is a bad combination for a driver. So the more it's kind of interesting with a driver. You've got really a whole bunch of different drivers, depending on where you hit it on the face. But if you get it high in the sweet spot, you start to gain an advantage from that being rolled in that direction.
Get a little more loft on it.
Yeah, so it's going to launch higher, and it's going to spin less. So the bulge and roll of this face affects how the ball flight changes as well.
Yes. What he was trying to do by having an ascending angle of attack was correct. His perception of what that looked like and then how to achieve it is what we need to address. So show how he was set up to it, because we see a lot of golfers in our schools and lessons doing this.
Yeah, so if I put this this is straight, and I start tipping to the side here, he was almost through where his leg would be here with the spine. So he's set up so far behind it with his upper body that as soon as he started to make a turn, it makes things even worse because he's...
Do that again. I'll put a line like from the side of your head here.
Yeah.
Okay, now when he started his swing, he moved a mile off this hand.
Exactly, because you're almost like... You're in side bend to start with, but at the top you have a lot of forward bend to your body just because of the way you're set up, and it makes it so that, oh wow, you're either going to hit it really fast.
He was drop kicking some,
or you're gonna start to chicken wing to hit up more to keep from hitting the ground, and that's when you start hitting the bottom of the face.
How much, for you guys watching at home, how much tilt should we have it set up? Let's talk about a good neutral driver setup for that 1, 2, 3 degrees up.
Yeah, so the way we like to think about it, the ball's going to be forward. That helps hit up on it, right? Because it's forward in the circle.
Yep.
Your stance is going to be wider with the driver than any other club, so it's outside your hip width. Now, if I point the butt of the club somewhere near my belt buckle and just let my right hand come on, what you're going to see here is I have a pretty good slope to my shoulders. Now, the spine itself is going to be pretty vertical. No problem to have it a couple degrees away. But the real key here is the slope that the shoulders take on as my right hand is lower and the ball is forward. That's pretty much all you need to do. You don't need to add a whole lot more to this like hip bump and and spine back because it doesn't really achieve what you're trying to do anyways.
Put that, I've seen you do this in lessons a lot where you use the shaft as almost like a tail.
Oh, yeah.
And where you angle that shaft is a great visual for anyone struggling to get a good setup with their driver.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, I use it a lot for just hip hinge, but you could just would apply to this video because you need to set up well. If you set up with this thing touching your sternum and your belt buckle, and you just bend forward to hit the driver, this bottom of this shaft should come out behind you. If you're guilty of just kind of squatting down, it stays between your feet. The other thing, too, if you get in here and this thing's touching your left leg or towards your right leg, you know you've got issues with where the spine is. So if I just bend forward and tilt it just a hair away, that would be plenty of spine tilt. That tilts my shoulders, and then that gets me in a good spot where I can just kind of wind up in that spot and keep my left ear behind the ball as I hit. That'll give me the right amount of tilted impact here with my hip shift forward, and you'll have a lot better chance of hitting it high middle.
One other caveat for when you're working on your setup with your driver, if you'll go back to the good setup, Shaun.
Sure.
Now, because the ball's forward, what we see golfers do every day we teach is they'll start to face the ball because it's forward and get their shoulders way open and the right arm really high.
Yeah, so when the ball is forward, the tendency is to, if my ball was up, if this is a square setup, the tendency is to kind of face it like this and the shoulders get open.
Like you would a wedge or a 7-iron.
Yeah, so the trick is get yourself square, like mid-body with the hands at your belt buckle, and then just place the club head up there by keeping the body still.
And you'll see for many of the best players in the world, the shaft will actually be leaned away from the target a little bit rather than forward shaft lean like we see through the bag.
Yeah, trying to get this thing up here doesn't really do you much good with the driver, and it can shove the body out of position.
So dial in your spine tilt at setup. Don't overdo it. Make sure your shoulders are good. And then the last thing that he was doing because of that setup that really put him behind the 8-ball we just talked about was his head was moving across. You want to keep the head relatively no more than half a head's worth of movement. It's kind of where we see the best players fall.
Yeah, on the backswing.
In the backswing. But you can still move the shoulder a ton.
Yeah, it's so if I put this up across my shoulders, my shoulder can kind of move across without a whole lot of upper body mass motion.
Do that again.
So I show people this all the time. I say it's the direction of the shoulder motion.
Yes.
I don't need to move everything across when I do that. Now, I'm bent forward, so the shoulder is going to have some downward trajectory, but it's definitely not going to be pointed at the ball. And you're just turning around this initial angle that you establish. So if I'm standing tall here, this shaft will turn level. I'm bent over slightly with the driver. I'm just turning on that angle, right, without moving my mass a whole lot away from the target. Pretty simple concept. If you do it.
Yeah, and you'll see players like Rory, maybe the best driver of the golf ball ever, move his shoulder across 3 times more than he moves it down. So there's always going to be down involved, but the across is really what starts to separate guys who can really thump their drivers. So once he was dialed in with his setup and he understood, okay, I can turn behind the ball without swaying my upper body off the ball, he felt like he was hitting, for the first handful of drives he hit, like he was actually hitting down.
Right.
Now, again, he went from a 9.4 was the biggest number we saw, which is something like that, to 3 up, which is still up right in the golden window there, but it was 6 degrees lower than what he was trying to do, which felt like a lot, which goes back to the point, you've got to have feedback when you're practicing, because if 2 weeks go by and he still feels like he's hitting down, there's a chance he may be hitting down then. So you want to be able to calibrate what your feels are and continually calibrate those feels because they're always going to change, especially if you're improving.
Yeah, and last but not least, the last cue is I had him feel like his left ear stayed behind the ball.
That's very simple.
You know, you can take that one to the golf course. If you start creeping your head out in front here, it steepens this angle of attack. So if I set up the way I'm supposed to, wind up, and then hips forward but left ear back, finally the head will release up here in the finish. But through the hit, the club's going to feel like it's swinging past you. My left ear kind of stays behind the ball. And that tilt that you get there also assists with swinging up and hitting up slightly.
Yeah, so again, you've got 0, a couple up, 1 down for some of the tour players. Like, it's the window there is very small. So don't adopt extreme setups. Do exactly what what are we going to call him? They want to blow him up. Dave, Dave again.
It's all Dave.
Everybody's Dave today. Do what Dave was doing. Tighten up your setup. Tighten up how you're moving, and let that club go.